Jimmy Cliff performed a duet with an unknown woman at a nightclub. When her identity was revealed, everyone was shocked. It was August 18, 1978, at the legendary Ronnie Scott's Jazz Club in London's Soho district, where Jimmy Cliff had stopped for a late-night drink after completing a sold-out concert at the Royal Albert Hall. The intimate club was buzzing with jazz musicians, music industry insiders, and late-night revelers who had come to hear the Saturday night jam session that regularly featured some of London's most talented performers and occasional surprise guest appearances by international artists. Jimmy had entered the club hoping to unwind after his triumphant concert, seeking the kind of spontaneous musical atmosphere that jazz clubs provided for artists who wanted to experience music for pure creative enjoyment, rather than commercial performance pressure or the structured demands of professional touring schedules. He was dressed casually in a simple white shirt and dark jacket, hoping to blend into the crowd and simply listen to the music without being recognized as the reggae star who had just delivered a consciousness-raising performance to thousands of enthusiastic fans. The club was dimly lit and intimate, with small round tables surrounding a modest stage where a trio of seasoned jazz musicians was exploring improvised versions of standards that showcased their technical mastery and creative spontaneity. The atmosphere was relaxed and welcoming, filled with the kind of musical respect and artistic appreciation that characterized London's most authentic jazz venues, where music existed for its own sake rather than commercial exploitation. As Jimmy settled into a corner table with a glass of red wine, he noticed a woman sitting alone at the bar, quietly listening to the music with the focused attention of someone who truly understood jazz's artistic complexity and spiritual depth. She appeared to be in her 30s, elegantly dressed in a simple black cocktail dress and pearl earrings, with an understated sophistication that suggested both cultural refinement and artistic sensibility that went far beyond casual appreciation. What caught Jimmy's attention wasn't just her obvious appreciation for the music, but the way she was unconsciously humming along with the complex harmonic progressions the musicians were exploring. Her head moving slightly to rhythms that revealed deep musical understanding and possibly extensive performance experience that went beyond passive listening to active musical comprehension. The woman's posture and demeanor suggested someone who was completely comfortable in musical environments, and Jimmy noticed that she was making subtle facial expressions that indicated she was anticipating chord changes and appreciating sophisticated musical choices that only experienced musicians would fully understand and appreciate. The jam session had been progressing for about an hour when the piano player, a distinguished gentleman in his 60s, who was clearly a veteran of London's jazz scene, called out to the audience with the traditional invitation that made Ronnie Scott's famous for its collaborative musical atmosphere and spontaneous artistic creation. "Ladies and gentlemen, we'd love to invite any musicians in the audience to join us on stage for some collaborative improvisation," the pianist announced, his voice carrying the warmth and professionalism that characterized the club's welcoming approach to musical creativity. Several musicians from the audience had already performed during the evening, including a talented young saxophone player who had delivered a stunning interpretation of Body and Soul that demonstrated both technical mastery and emotional depth, and a jazz vocalist who had brought new emotional dimensions to Strange Fruit through her powerful and moving interpretation that had left the entire audience silent with appreciation. But when Jimmy heard the piano player ask if there were any other vocalists in the audience who wanted to contribute to the evening's musical exploration, he felt an unexpected urge to participate in this intimate musical community, rather than remaining a passive observer of other people's creative expression and artistic collaboration. Jimmy had performed on thousands of stages around the world, from massive outdoor festivals attended by hundreds of thousands of people to prestigious concert halls filled with sophisticated audiences. but there was something particularly appealing about the idea of singing in this small, intimate setting, where music existed for its own sake rather than for commercial purposes, media attention, or audience entertainment expectations. As Jimmy considered whether to join the session, he noticed that the elegant woman at the bar had turned toward the stage with obvious interest when the invitation was extended to vocalists, her body language suggesting that she might be a singer herself and was considering whether to participate in the collaborative musical exploration that characterized the club's artistic atmosphere. The way she was looking at the stage wasn't the casual interest of an audience member, but the focused attention of someone who was evaluating the musical situation and considering how she might contribute to the evening's artistic development through her own performance participation. Making a spontaneous decision that would lead to one of the most extraordinary and shocking musical encounters of his career. Jimmy stood up from his table and walked toward the stage, drawing surprised recognition from some audience members who hadn't expected to see an international reggae star participating in their intimate jazz session rather than simply enjoying it as a spectator. "I'd like to contribute something if that's all right," Jimmy announced to the musicians on stage, his distinctive Jamaican accent immediately identifying him to audience members who recognized his voice from radio play and concert performances, creating a subtle buzz of excitement throughout the club. The piano player's face immediately lit up with obvious excitement and honor at having such a distinguished guest artist join their session. "Jimmy Cliff, we're absolutely honored to have you with us tonight. What would you like to perform?" Jimmy was about to suggest one of his own compositions adapted for jazz interpretation, when the elegant woman from the bar stood up and walked confidently toward the stage, her graceful movement and obvious comfort in performance settings suggesting someone who belonged on stage and was completely comfortable with musical collaboration and public performance. "Excuse me," she said, her voice carrying a distinctly American accent with sophisticated diction that suggested classical musical training and extensive professional performance experience in high-level artistic environments. "I couldn't help but notice that you're looking for vocalists, and I wondered if you might be interested in a duet rather than a solo performance." Jimmy was immediately intrigued by her suggestion and by the confidence with which she had approached the stage, understanding that she must possess serious vocal ability and professional experience to suggest collaboration with an internationally known artist in front of a knowledgeable jazz audience that would immediately recognize authentic talent versus amateur enthusiasm or presumptuous behavior. "I'd be honored to perform with you," Jimmy replied, immediately sensing that this unknown woman possessed the kind of musical sophistication and artistic presence that could create something special through collaborative improvisation rather than competitive performance or awkward musical mismatch. The piano player looked between Jimmy and the mysterious woman with obvious excitement and professional curiosity, understanding that he was about to witness an unprecedented musical collaboration between a reggae legend and an unknown vocalist whose presence, confidence, and sophisticated demeanor suggested exceptional artistic ability and extensive performance experience. "What psalm did you have in mind?" the woman asked Jimmy, her question revealing familiarity with jazz standards and collaborative performance protocols that confirmed her musical sophistication and professional experience in settings that required quick musical decision-making and adaptive artistic collaboration. Jimmy considered several options before suggesting "Summertime," the George Gershwin classic that had become a standard for jazz interpretation and cross-cultural musical exploration. Understanding that the song's spiritual themes and harmonic complexity would provide an excellent framework for demonstrating how reggae consciousness could enhance, rather than conflict with jazz artistry and sophisticated musical interpretation. "Perfect choice," the woman responded immediately, her quick agreement and obvious familiarity with the song confirming that she was indeed an accomplished vocalist who understood how to approach jazz standards with both respect for tradition and creative innovation that could bring new life to familiar material. As the piano player began the opening chords of Summertime, something magical began happening on the small stage at Ronnie Scott's. Jimmy and this mysterious woman began creating a musical conversation that demonstrated how different musical traditions and vocal styles could blend together to create something more beautiful and powerful than either could achieve alone through individual performance. Jimmy's interpretation of Summertime incorporated the spiritual depth and consciousness-raising perspective that characterized his approach to all music, bringing new emotional dimensions to Gershwin's timeless composition while respecting its essential character and harmonic sophistication. His voice carried the weight of reggae's spiritual wisdom while adapting to jazz's improvisational demands with remarkable musical flexibility. The mysterious woman's vocals revealed classical training combined with jazz sophistication and an emotional authenticity that suggested deep personal connection to the song's themes of longing, hope, and spiritual transcendence. Her voice was powerful yet nuanced, capable of both delicate phrasing and soaring emotional peaks that demonstrated years of professional vocal development and artistic maturity. Their voices blended in perfect harmony during the chorus, creating musical magic that had the entire club transfixed by the beauty and spontaneity of their collaboration. The unknown woman's vocal range and technical ability were clearly extraordinary, matching Jimmy's spiritual expression with her own sophisticated artistry that elevated their duet far above casual jam session performance into something approaching professional recording quality. As they traded verses and harmonized through the song's emotional peaks and valleys, it became clear to everyone in Ronnie Scott's that they were witnessing something extraordinary, a once-in-a-lifetime musical collaboration between two exceptional artists who had found perfect creative chemistry through pure chance and shared musical instincts that transcended their different artistic backgrounds. The woman's interpretation of Gershwin's lyrics revealed not just technical mastery, but deep understanding of the song's spiritual and emotional content, while Jimmy's reggae-influenced phrasing brought new dimensions to familiar melodies without compromising the song's essential character or emotional impact. Their collaborative approach honored both jazz tradition and reggae innovation. The piano player and other musicians on stage responded to their duet with inspired accompaniment that elevated the entire performance, understanding that they were participating in something special that required their best artistic contributions to support the magical vocal collaboration occurring before them. When their duet reached its climax, both singers improvised vocal runs that complemented each other perfectly, demonstrating the kind of musical telepathy and usually developed only through years of collaborative performance, but had somehow emerged spontaneously between two artists who had never met before tonight and had no rehearsal or preparation time. The audience at Ronnie Scott's responded with the longest and most enthusiastic applause that the club had heard in years, understanding that they had witnessed something truly special and unprecedented in the venue's legendary history of hosting exceptional musical performances by both established stars and emerging talents. People throughout the club were looking at each other with amazement, many shaking their heads in disbelief at the quality and beauty of what they had just experienced. The spontaneous duet had transformed a casual evening into an unforgettable musical moment that would be talked about for years among London's jazz community. But the most extraordinary part of this already remarkable evening was still to come, as the identity of Jimmy's mysterious duet partner was about to be revealed in a way that would shock everyone present and create one of the most talked-about musical encounters in jazz history. As the applause continued and Jimmy and the woman took their bows together, acknowledging the audience's appreciation with obvious joy and mutual respect for each other's artistry, someone in the audience who had been trying to place her face throughout the performance suddenly gasped with recognition and called out in amazement that would change everything. "Oh my God, that's Diana Ross!" The revelation sent immediate shockwaves through Ronnie Scott's, as audience members realized that they had just witnessed an impromptu duet between reggae legend Jimmy Cliff and Diana Ross, the former Supremes lead singer who was at the absolute peak of her solo career and was one of the most recognizable voices in popular music worldwide. The recognition created a chain reaction throughout the club as people began whispering excitedly to each other, many pulling out cameras and notebooks as they realized they had witnessed a historic musical moment that would become legendary in both jazz and popular music circles. Diana Ross was in London for a series of high-profile television appearances and interviews promoting her latest album, but had decided to spend her one free evening exploring the city's legendary jazz scene rather than attending industry parties or promotional events that characterized her usual professional obligations during international tours and media campaigns. She had chosen to visit Ronnie Scott's specifically because of its reputation for authentic jazz performance and its policy of allowing musicians to perform without commercial pressure or media attention, seeking exactly the kind of spontaneous musical experience that she had just shared with Jimmy Cliff in front of an intimate and appreciative audience. Diana had deliberately dressed down and avoided her usual entourage in order to experience London's jazz scene as a music lover rather than as a celebrity, hoping to connect with the artistic authenticity that had originally inspired her love for music before commercial success and media attention had complicated her relationship with pure musical expression. The recognition created immediate excitement throughout the club, as people realized they had witnessed an unprecedented musical collaboration between two major international stars who had created something magical through pure chance and shared musical instincts, rather than planned commercial collaboration or carefully orchestrated media event. Music journalists who happened to be present began taking detailed notes about what they had witnessed, understanding that they had been present for a historic musical moment that would become legendary among jazz and popular music enthusiasts worldwide, and would likely be written about in music publications for years to come. Several audience members who had been recording the performance on small portable tape recorders realized that they now possessed potentially valuable documentation of an unrehearsed collaboration between two major recording artists, though most were more interested in the musical magic they had witnessed than any commercial value their recordings might possess. Diana Ross, now identified but still glowing from the musical experience, and obviously moved by the artistic connection she had shared with Jimmy, graciously acknowledged the audience's amazed response, while expressing her own surprise and delight at the spontaneous collaboration that had emerged from her casual evening out. "I came here tonight just hoping to hear some good jazz and maybe escape from the promotional obligations for a few hours," Diana said to the audience, her famous voice now clearly recognizable to everyone present. "I had no idea I would have the opportunity to perform with Jimmy Cliff, and I'm honored that our paths crossed in such a musical and magical way." Jimmy was equally amazed by the revelation, having had no idea that his mysterious duet partner was one of the most famous and accomplished vocalists in popular music. Diana Ross has just proven that real musical magic happens when artists come together with open hearts and respect for each other's artistry. Jimmy responded with obvious admiration and gratitude. The two artists spent several more minutes on stage, talking with the audience about their spontaneous collaboration and expressing mutual respect for each other's musical traditions and artistic approaches that had created such beautiful harmony despite their different musical backgrounds and career paths. Diana praised Jimmy's ability to bring consciousness-raising depth and spiritual authenticity to jazz standards without compromising their essential character or harmonic sophistication, while Jimmy expressed amazement at Diana's vocal technique and her ability to find common ground between Motown sophistication and reggae spiritual expression through pure musical instinct. The evening's unexpected collaboration led to a genuine friendship between Jimmy and Diana that continued long after their chance encounter at Ronnie Scott's, with both artists expressing interest in future collaborations that could explore the musical territory they had discovered through their spontaneous duet and shared artistic chemistry. Music industry observers began speculating about the commercial potential of a Jimmy Cliff-Diana Ross collaboration, but both artists emphasized in subsequent interviews that their focus was on the artistic and spiritual connection they had discovered, rather than any commercial opportunities that might emerge from their musical chemistry. The story of their surprise duet became legendary within the music industry, representing a perfect example of how authentic musical magic could emerge when established artists approached collaboration with openness and respect, rather than competitive ego or commercial calculation that might interfere with genuine artistic expression. Bootleg recordings of their summertime duet began circulating among jazz collectors and music enthusiasts who recognized that they were hearing something unprecedented in popular music history. A spontaneous collaboration between two major stars that had captured lightning in a bottle through pure musical instinct and artistic authenticity. The Ronnie Scott's duet influenced how other artists approached informal musical collaboration, inspiring musicians to seek out opportunities for spontaneous creative expression, rather than limiting themselves to carefully planned commercial partnerships that might lack the authenticity and magic of genuine artistic surprise that had characterized Jimmy and Diana's unexpected encounter. Jazz clubs around the world began promoting their jam sessions more actively, hoping to recreate the kind of magical musical moments that had occurred at Ronnie Scott's. Though music industry professionals understood that such spontaneous artistic chemistry couldn't be manufactured through promotional efforts. Years later, both Jimmy and Diana would cite their unexpected encounter at Ronnie Scott's as one of the most memorable and meaningful musical experiences of their careers, proving that the greatest artistic achievements often emerged from spontaneous collaboration rather than calculated commercial planning. The story became a favorite anecdote for both artists in interviews, demonstrating how music could create instant connections between artists from different backgrounds who shared commitment to authentic artistic expression and consciousness-raising creativity. Diana often spoke passionately about how the experience had reminded her of why she had fallen in love with music in the first place, before the pressures of commercial success had sometimes complicated her relationship with pure artistic expression. Jimmy frequently referenced the incredible duet as an example of how reggae consciousness could find common ground with any musical tradition when approached with respect and openness, proving that consciousness-raising music could transcend genre boundaries. The bootleg recordings of their duet became treasured collector's items among music enthusiasts who understood that they possessed documentation of a unique moment in music history that could never be replicated through commercial recording sessions. Music historians began studying the legendary Ronnie Scott's encounter as an example of how authentic artistic magic occurred when established artists approached musical collaboration with humility and respect, rather than ego or competitive instincts. The mysterious woman who had approached Jimmy for a duet had turned out to be one of the most famous voices in popular music, but their collaboration had been magical precisely because it emerged from genuine musical instinct and mutual artistic respect rather than star power. The story of their extraordinary chance encounter continues to inspire musicians and music lovers worldwide, who understand that the greatest artistic achievements often happen when talented performers come together with open hearts and genuine respect for each other's unique artistic traditions. If this incredible story of how a casual evening at a legendary jazz club led to one of the most surprising and beautiful musical collaborations in entertainment history moved you, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for more amazing tales of artists who proved that the greatest musical magic happens when talented performers come together with completely open hearts.